I have a dream. Does this sound familiar? Is that something that changed your life or something you know nothing about? For me, I hear that phrase and I feel a sense of accomplishment and freedom. Well, Martin Luther King Jr. stated that in his speech at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. in 1963. This man was a legacy and did many things for the African American culture, which in the end got him assassinated. There are many things that led up to his assassination. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. He was the son of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Alberta Williams King. He had an older sister, Willie Christine King, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel Williams King. He grew up in Atlanta. King attended Booker T. Washington High School and skipped 9th and 12th grade and entered Morehouse College at age 15 without really graduating from a high school. In 1948, he graduated from the Morehouse with a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology. He went to a Crozer Theological Seminar in Chester, Pennsylvania, where he graduated with a Bachelor's of Divinity degree in 1951. King then began doctoral studies in systematic theology at Boston University and received his Doctor of Philosophy on June 5, 1955. He married Coretta Scott on June 18, 1953, on the lawn of her parents' home in her hometown of Heiberger, Alabama. King and Scott had 4 children: Yolanda, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott, and Bernice King. King became a pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, where he was 25 years old. The Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. In March 1955, a 15-year-old schoolgirl, Claudette Calvin, refused to give up her bus seat to a white man in compliance with the Jim Crow laws. On December 1st, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat. The Montgomery bus boycott, urged and planned by the Nixon and led by the King, soon followed. The boycott lasted 385 days. And the situation became so tense that King's house was bombed. King was arrested during this campaign, which ended with the United States District Court ruling in Browder versus Gale that ended racial segregation on all Montgomery public buses. The things that led up to his assassination was the Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday was attempted to organize a march from Selma to the state capital of Montgomery for March 7th, 1965. The first attempt to march on March 7th was aborted because the mob of police violence against the demonstrators. This day has since become known as Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday was a major turning point in the effort to gain public support for the civil rights movement, the clearest demonstration up to that time of the dramatic political of King's nonviolence. Another event that led up is Chicago. In 1966, after several successes in South, King and others in the civil rights organization tried to spread the movement to the north. With Chicago at its first destination, King and Ralph Abernathy, both from the middle classes, moved into the slums of North Lawndale on the west side of Chicago as an educational experience and to demonstrate their support and empathy of the poor. During that spring, several dual white couple black couple tests on real estate offices uncovered the practice, it's now banned in the United States, of racial steering. These tests revealed that racially selective processing of house requests by couples who were exact matches in income, background, number of children, and other attributes, with the only difference being their race. Another thing that led up is the Vietnam War. Starting in 1965, King began to express doubts about the United States' role in the Vietnam War. In an April 4th, 1967, appearance at the New York City Riverside Church exactly 1 year before his death, King delivered a speech titled Beyond Vietnam. In this speech, he spoke strongly about the U.S.'s role in the war, insisting that the U.S. was in Vietnam to occupy it as an American colony, and calling the U.S. government the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. He also argued that the country needed larger and broader moral changes. King also was opposed to the Vietnam War on the grounds that the war took money and resources that could have been spent on social warfare services like war on poverty. King also stated that in his Beyond Vietnam speech that true compassion is more than flinging on coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. King spoke at the anti-Vietnam demonstration where he also brought up issues of civil rights in the draft. The Poor People campaign also had led up to his assassination. Poor People's campaign was an address issues of economic justice. The campaign culminated on the march in a march on Washington, D.C., demanding economic aid to the poorest communities in the U.S. that would march in Washington to engage in nonviolent civil disobedience at the Capitol until Congress created a Bill of Rights for poor nonviolent civil disobedience for poor Americans. However, the campaign was not unanimously supported by the other leaders of the civil rights movement. I have a dream speech. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening alliances of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring for the Stone Mountains of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, we will allow freedom ring when we let it ring from every village, every hamlet, from every state, every city. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are all free at last. Nobel Peace Prize. At the age of 35, Martin Luther King Jr. was the youngest man to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. When notified of his selection, he announced that he would turn over the prize money, $54,123, to the furtherance of the civil rights movement. Now, King's assassination. King was shot at 6:01 p.m. April 4th, 1968, while he was standing on the motel's second-floor balcony. The bullet entered through his right cheek, smashing his jaw, and then traveled down his spinal cord before lodging his shoulder. According to Jesse Jackson, who was present, King's last words on the balcony were to the musician Ben Branch, who was scheduled to perform that night at the event King was attending. Ben, make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord in the meeting tonight. Play it real pretty. Today in the world, I don't think we as adults or students today know exactly what King did, not only for the African American culture, but what he did for the world. He not only brought many different freedoms to cultures, but he was also a very influential and intellectual man that put his life on the line for his moral beliefs and what he thought the world needed to stand for. He will forever be remembered on the third Monday in January for his many achievements.